I'm a 19-year educator. This is my first year in becoming a principal of a head school. So I'm super excited about that. Today was the first day that teachers are welcome back. So I'm a little bit of double duty, but I went away and isolated myself for this time. So my dissertation is about safety and how it impacts freshman education, whether they are promoted or retained, and whether they graduate from high school. Last time that we met, I was specifically working on how safety impacts on-time promotion to the 10th grade. However, after reviewing the literature and continuing to work on it, I found that graduation was an important component as well as it pertained to that, based off what the literature said, and did a quantitative study in regards to that to see what the numbers were telling me off a data set.
And Jermaine, maybe you can put this in presentation mode so we can see the whole slide.
Okay. There we go. Let me see. Can you guys see it now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So without anything being said, here we go. Just a couple of things that I have in regards to that. And at the end, we broke down the research findings and the suggestions for future research. When talking about safety, or ninth grade specifically, it's always been the make or break grade for high school students, determining whether they're going to graduate from high school. Wanted to find out what was the impact safety or the perception of how students feel in their ninth grade year, and if it impacts their on-time promotion to the 10th grade based off of that. We know that research tells us ninth grade students benefit from a lot of support systems and structures that promote a feeling of being safe and feeling like they belong to a school community that supports them academically and the relationships that they have with their teachers. So why is this a big thing for me? As I stated before, I am a 19-year educator. The past 10 years, I was an assistant principal, but I was in charge of ninth grade students. I kind of broke them into what high school is about and really just trying to see what they needed in order to be successful. So I found that ninth graders who earn on-time promotion are 3 times more likely to graduate than any other high school student that has been retained in the ninth grade. So understanding how important getting the courses that deem them on track is so imperative to what happens when if they graduate on time or not. And McIver and Neil and a couple of others support that argument, as well as Belfast. I also know that having specific structures and systems that support a school climate that gives students that sense of feeling like they belong, sense that they feel safe, sense that they have an opportunity to excel and take chances academically, has gained the necessary outcomes for them to be successful in the ninth grade, which in turn supports them graduating from high school and being promoted on time to the 10th grade. The relationships that adults have and teachers specifically is imperative to the environment that the student feels, believes that they need to feel that they're going to be successful from entering high school. And more importantly, me working in the urban school district, Baltimore City, I've noticed that Black students succeed academically when they feel like they belong to that community. And it's just not a community where they're getting math, social studies, English, and science. They have to have that relationship piece with the adult in order for them to gain trust, because of so many other obstacles and things that they have in their life. So that was an important piece as well. I believe this study is important because I think a lot of times we dismiss how relevant safety is. However, there are different components from the safety measure that we're going to talk about, but the physical standpoint of a school and how a student feels safe is important, or whether they feel unsafe, because it doesn't impact their attendance, which in turn then impacts their academic progress, and eventually, if they are going to graduate or be promoted on time. When students have a successful freshman year, they have a better likelihood of graduating on time and attending college. That is what it has showed us as well. So the conceptual and theoretical framework that I talked about in here that was relevant was Maslow's hierarchy of needs and the authoritative school climate. I think meshing those two together is the ideal way to look at whether we get the reception if a student feels safe at school based off of these theories. And I know we're all familiar with Maslow, but I do want us to focus on the safety needs, security and safety. Those are basic needs that you need to have in order to feel the psychological needs and feel good about yourself. When one feels good about themselves, the activities that they do, specifically in school, have better outcomes in regards to that. And as you see, the belongingness and the love is very important. But the security, what does the security look like in a school from a ninth grade student's perspective, and what are the safety measures that the administration and leadership has put in place to support those needs? In conjunction with that, I also believe that students learn better when they are a part of an authoritative school climate. Authoritative school climate is about being fair but firm, having specific expectations that you want your students to have, and holding them accountable. We use this term, authoritative school climate is like having an accountable community, but that goes both ways, with the students to the teachers and the teachers to the students and staff as well. When a student has an opportunity to have that relationship piece with the adult, then they can emphasize on what academic success looks like, especially if the climate is safe and orderly, and system and routines are set up in the teacher's classroom for students. This gives the opportunity for the outcomes that we want to motivate students while they are being effective in math and reading. So just briefly about our literature review. We have factors that influence ninth grade. Being familiar with the early warning indicators and how that monitors ninth grade students is important. The EWIs have been around for quite some time, and I'm happy to say in my district in Baltimore City, we have hired OTG, on-track graduation coordinators, who specifically focus on the EWIs with ninth grade students and monitor those students as they go along their school year, and participating with surveys and different academic needs to make sure students are on track to graduate and have every opportunity to be successful. That work also includes making sure that we are involving not just the stakeholders in the school, but all stakeholders, specifically the parents in an urban school district like Baltimore City. It's a little difficult at times to have parent involvement. So having that is important, and always having a transitional program that supports the incoming freshmen. It has been very, very, very influential to the success of ninth grade students. Some of those programs are the high school prep, where we have incoming ninth graders come in through the summer and have a 2-week systemic professional welcoming to the ninth grade students, so they get to understand what high school's like, learn the building, learn the culture of what we're trying to get to the school, and understand where to go, have their schedule, meet new teachers, and have that camaraderie, and start to build on that sense of belonging and relationships with the teachers and staff. So when the first day comes, they're not surprised, or they do have somebody that they've spoken to. They do have an understanding. which doesn't impact the success of ninth grade students. And then finally, showing families that schools have a positive school climate and students' ability to learn in that climate is imperative. So showing the systems and operations that we have when it comes to the metal detectors and the security system that every student and every visitor goes through Baltimore City before they enter has been very successful for us. Also having a working camera system so students feel like if something is going on, it's being viewed and we can be proactive instead of reactive if we see things going. Also having hall monitors and support staff throughout the building in the hallways as students travel to and from classes has been very beneficial for students as well. So thinking about that, I came up with these research questions in my hypothesis. And because I am working in Baltimore City, race has been very important for me to recognize in regards to students' perception of school safety and how it influences ninth grade students that they are, whether the likelihood that they'll be promoted on time to the 10th grade. Now, the work that we've done in Baltimore City with that OTG, On Track Graduation Coordinator, specifically focuses on getting students promoted to the 10th grade. Based off of what the outcomes we've had, we have added to that, and I'll talk a little bit about that later on. But SES, I think you always need to include SES and control for that so you can understand the type of families and students we're dealing with. We took a look at sex and family structure. When I talk about family structure, we specifically focused on one-parent household versus two-parent households and how that impacts, or does that impact, whether a student is likely to be promoted on time and graduate on time with the perception of safety. The second one was accounting for all those variables as well, but this time really specifically looking at what is the likelihood that the ninth grade safety influence the likelihood that they graduate from high school. I was finding a lot of information in regards to ninth grade courses and on-time promotion to the 10th grade, but I would be remiss if I left graduation out after looking at the literature again and eventually it coming down to that. So I was interested to see if that whole concept held steady when we talked about the overall graduation. So based off of my history and my career, I've had I believe that when accounting for those variables, students who report feeling safe at school will be more likely to be promoted to the 10th grade. And I also believe that they will be more likely to graduate from high school as well when it comes to that. So just a brief thing on the methodology. You see the variables and what was used in regards to that. Races with sufficient number of cases for the analysis, SES, and the single and two-parent home, and the sex of the student were the covariates that we was focusing on. The data set that was used was the HSLS 2009 data set that included an emphasis on the STEM skills, and the topics explored surveys that was given to the ninth grade students. The one I focused on was whether students believe they felt safe at school. It was a direct question. And then we talked about the graduation rate and how the other things impacted attendance and whatnot. So the participants, we had about 23 ninth grade students from 944 different schools in 2009 who was a part of this. And the expected outcomes. So when looking at the outcomes, understanding the impact of how ninth grade students feeling safe and on-time promotion to the 10th grade and graduation, really involving how that looks and what that process is and what were the contributing factors to support that or lack thereof. That also goes with analyzing the high SES versus low SES. When we talk about race, it was specifically, I wanted to talk about Black students versus non-Black students, specifically because the majority of the students that I serve in Baltimore City are Black. So I was trying to see how that was and how that looked across different schools and districts to see how it related to my school. And then again, at the end, we want to have the outcomes where school leaders can identify what were the best supports, what were the strongest supports needed to create safe school communities so students can flourish and blossom into academic success and ultimately graduation. So the findings, I wanted to break it down from hypothesis because it was interesting what the findings were. And Dr. Fentz and I, we were going back and forth, really trying to beat this thing up. And it was interesting what happened. When accounting for race, socioeconomic, and sex and family structure, students who report feeling safe at school are statistically significant. It's a statistically significant predictor of on-time promotion to the 10th grade. So what we found was the beginning of students' success in 9th grade was important with whether they are promoted to the 10th grade. And that was statistically significant based off the data and the numbers that was ran. However, though, when looking at graduation, and this was interesting, with all those variables, students who reported feeling safe at school, they were not statistically significant to graduate. It wasn't statistically significant. It wasn't a predictor of that. And I found that interesting because a lot of the data and the literature that I was reading shared the opposite. So it was interesting to see that some of these things didn't happen, but really breaking down what was going on was interested enough. But just a couple of things when we talk about that, students who earned enough credits to be promoted on time did graduate from high school, and that's we're talking about 9th grade. School communities and leaders identified specific things from 10th to 12th grade that could have potentially impacted students not still graduating, even though they weren't, they may have not been on track. And some of those things were the summer school and credit recovery programs that are given to upperclassmen to push, if you will, the students to the final, through the final, the gate so they can graduate. So as I was reading, districts and different school leaders got very, very creative in making sure that upperclassmen had every opportunity to graduate and take courses, even if they weren't successful in them and their day program, which then hence continued them being on time to be promoted, but eventually graduating. So with all that being said, there was some things that I believe we should look at when it comes to the future research. I believe school leaders should implement evidence-based transitional programs such as Summer Bridge, high school orientation. And one thing that we looked at was the family counseling sessions that students came up with in 9th grade. So a family counseling session is where you have a incoming freshman who just completed the 8th grade, are identified with a feeder school to that high school where students have school leaders from 9th grade or high school have an opportunity to get them with their family counselor or a social worker from the school to have sessions with that family from students who did struggle in 8th grade to see what are the supports we can put in place before the student gets in so they're able to be successful and make sure that we can focus on academics, because we know how important it is for 9th grade students in their first time going to high school. I believe researchers should conduct a study that focuses on how an authoritative school climate helps improve academics and graduation rates. We touched on it here with one of the conceptual framework. However, if we focus on the ins and out of what an authoritative school climate is and having a potential mixed methods approach to that, I think it would give us a better understanding on what is needed to improve academics and graduation rates, specifically in urban school districts. We do as districts need to provide a specific plan, and that is one thing that we as Baltimore City has been doing. I'm on that one of those from the operational leadership team, where what is a plan that is not just a cookie cutter for my school, but what is a plan that has worked in hard, challenging schools that can be implemented throughout all our schools across Baltimore City. So we're on the same page, doing the same thing at the same time, and having the data that supports that. If we have these structures in place where you have school police, hall monitors, support staff, i.e. cameras, students are more likely to come to school. So we could take a look at attendance and see how attendance can affect that as well. So having schools, having that OTG coordinator, I think is important, but I would really like to see, is that something that is just happening in Baltimore City or throughout the country? I've looked at a little bit of research. I know several districts, mainly in different urban cities, have OTG coordinators, but I think looking at schools that have OT coordinators, do they have a greater likelihood of students graduating on time? And not just graduating from high school, but I think diving deeper into cohort, that 4-year span, graduating on time, does the OTG coordinator support that work? Really getting into the nuts and bolts of what that family and structure look like, stakeholders and schools look like in elementary, middle, and how did they feel, what made those students feel safe at school from the elementary, middle school level, and track their progress through high school to see if they said having a family member volunteer in the school made me feel safer. Having a bus system that makes me not have to use public transportation makes me feel safer coming to school, so I don't have to worry about getting robbed when I go to school using public transportation, which is a lot of things that we have. So getting that information and having that qualitative data can focus on that, which is that 5 and 6 kind of concurrently and together. But one of the big things that we struggle with in Baltimore City is students traveling to and from school, and a lot of students not coming to school because they feel unsafe just getting to school. So what can we do, and what are some of the factors that influence those issues that has a direct impact on academics and graduation? So in closing, we know school safety does play a role in determining whether a 9th grade student will be successful. When a student does feel safe and secure in their school environment, they are more likely to focus on their studies, overall academic performance, which then leads to them being successful in graduating. Attendance is a big thing that we saw in the literature in regards a safe school environment encourages students to want to come to school, but safe transportation to and from school is a big thing as well. Academic performance, when students feel safe, they're willing to take more chances and concentrate on the studies without any distractions, and we have an opportunity to let that mind expand. Having a sense of belonging and being emotionally in touch with somebody in a community of people in the school has played a big impact on whether a student is successful academically, specifically in the 9th grade. The reduction of distractions, you can't do anything in chaos. That's one of the things that we stamp ourselves on in Baltimore City. Let's get order and systems and structures so we can have a great experience for students, specifically in 9th grade, and whether they'll be promoted to the 10th grade and forward graduating. But schools should prioritize creating a safe school environment for students to ensure their promotion to 9th grade and eventually graduating from high school. So that is the presentation. If there are any questions or concerns, I'm happy to answer them. I wish I had more time to really get into this, but I know I was a race against time, but there are some neat findings that I did with this work, and I was really excited about it.
Okay, well, we are okay for time here. I'd like to open it up for faculty questions.
And Jermaine, maybe you could stop sharing your screen so we can all see each other's faces.
Sorry. Yep, sorry. Can you see me now? Okay.
Jermaine, I know this has been a a process for you, right? And you've grown as a researcher and a scholar as you've worked through the process. Can you talk a little bit about what was most surprising to you in the study?
So the most surprising thing to me in this study was how a student feeling safe wasn't a statistically significant predictor of whether they graduate. I thought that that would be a slam dunk, but my hypothesis was wrong. And that what was surprising was the literature, a lot of the literature was telling me differently, where they felt like when a student did feel safe, they are more likely to graduate. But running the numbers with the data set, the HSLS, did not support that. So that was the most surprising thing. And really just going through different variables and seeing what I was going to get for the most bang for my buck was a thing.
Can I ask a question? So do you think, based on the literature, based on your gut feeling, if the HSLS continued and let's say you had a 2020 version, do you think the findings would be different? Or a 2022 version after COVID, do you think the findings would be different?
I definitely think the findings would be different. As I was getting the newer articles and literature, COVID did start to play a role in regards to that type of safety, not just the physical safety of violence or anything like that, but just students didn't feel comfortable coming to school because they were worried about getting sick or worried about getting somebody who they lived with sick who already had pre-existing health conditions. So I think that's where the mixed methods or a full qualitative study would be so powerful, especially in these days and times, to really see how safety looks from rural, suburban to urban school districts and the challenges that each one face different.
Thank you for sharing that. You know me, I love qualitative research, so
Yeah,
I'm
I
all
know.
about
I know you.
that.
I know you do.
Thank you, Jermaine.
And I love quantitative research, so
I
I'll
know.
answer the next question. So Jermaine, I'm wondering, I'm familiar with this literature, ninth grade success, and I'm also working with city schools, and we're putting it into place in the middle grades too. So woo.
Awesome.
I am wondering, when I think about the literature, the big predictors, which it's in your literature review, are attendance, behavior, course performance. This really predicts success in ninth grade. So maybe this is a future extension of this work, or maybe I can just ask you kind of like in another universe, if you had included those same indicators like course performance, chronic absenteeism in ninth grade, do you have any expectations about how that would have affected your results? Like if you controlled for those things as well, or even if you studied the relationship between those predictors and safety?
Yeah, Doc, I think we would have seen some different outcomes, especially when it comes to chronic absenteeism, specifically in the Baltimore City, if you will. That is a high predictor of success or lack thereof for our students. We have gradually been decreasing the chronic absenteeism, but like, for example, my school that I'm at now, they decreased from 68% to 59%. That's still high. That was a big gain. So I believe that both my hypotheses would have been correct if we talked about those different variables and predictors. Again, I think with COVID coming in, and we're getting out of COVID, so it's different. But I would be interested to see, does chronic absenteeism have a direct impact on COVID and us not really being able to pivot back to school as usual, if you will, from that, because there has been so many changes. And what I mean by that, we have given our students every opportunity, and I can speak to Baltimore City, but I know it's happening in Philadelphia and Chicago as well in the literature. We've given our students every opportunity to graduate and meet success, whether it's the summer school courses, twilight courses, which are after school credit recovery, and Saturday school credit recovery, and Apex as well. The thing that we have to pivot from is we've given all those programs to our students for free. So the what are the expectations that we have for students, but more importantly, what are the expectations do they have for themselves when it comes to the day program? Or do they know, okay, I can just sleep in for first period, second period, even though it's math and English, and I know they're going to give it to me for free in credit recovery? Well, they'll still get on time, they'll still get to graduate on time, but it's directly impacting our chronic absenteeism rate. So to see how that would align, I think we would have to also look at what we do in those grades for credit recovery options to see if we can merge that and see how those impact the different variables.
Thanks for the insight.
And Jermaine, you had, I think I can glean some of this, from your position. You talked about your role, but how did this come about, this study? I mean, what were some of the things you were seeing, and how did this whole take shape?
Yeah, that's a loaded question, but just to keep it short, like I said, I've worked with ninth grade students as an English teacher for 5 years, and then I became an administrator for the next 8 years. So 13 years in ninth grade alone, and then the last 6 years in charge of culture and climate for the whole school. But the conversations that I would have with my students as a teacher, and why they weren't coming to school, or why they would just come to my class and miss other classes, were some of the examples that I did see in the literature, where a student just did not feel safe coming to the school that we were in because of the infrastructure. At first, there were some schools that did not have metal detectors, and they had some gang-related issues coming to and from school. And just the challenge that they have alone to get to school was a big factor. Another thing was, I believe, like my guy John Locke and Maslow, you learn through play. Like, when the mind is ready to learn, you will learn. And what do we have in place in our school community to make a student want to be here and learn and be interested in something? I didn't see a lot of that when it came to a lot of classrooms in ninth grade. So I tried to make learning as fun as possible. And I have all my corny sayings and all that. But in turn, I saw that I had the highest test scores when it came to the test, when it's the benchmarks and all that, versus my colleagues. So try to infuse that and just do that. And then the violence alone in my district made me want to say, hey, is this a cookie cutter, or are we really serious about what safety is to our students, and how is it impacting specifically my students, but everybody across the country? Does everyone have this type of experience? And a lot of times the literature does say they do, but the magnitude, I think the magnitude of it in Baltimore City just hits different with me in my soul, because I live it and I see it. That's why when I controlled for race, even though it wasn't statistically significant when it came to that, Black versus non-Black, because I teach a lot of Black students. However, I know that non-Black students are going through the same things in different regions in America that come from low SESs and high SESs. I hope I answered your question.
Absolutely. And I think that brings us right to the end. If anybody had any more questions. Okay. Yes, go ahead.
I liked the component of the at the end where you were talking about looking into research more with like the parent counseling and stuff like that. Could you also speak to like the mindset of parents and how that influences, whether or not the students are going to school and their safe and their feelings of safety?
Yeah. So one of the things that I've noticed throughout my tenure is our students are a lot of times the adult in the house. So they're making a lot of the decisions. And when we finally do get in touch with parents, you'll find that a lot of times they're not living with their biological parent. They may be living with a grandmother or an aunt or uncle, or in a group home because of the trauma that they've had. So when we have an opportunity to connect families together, I have seen that it has worked. We then try to get those parents who don't work to come and volunteer, so they have a hands-on experience with their child's education. And it's been tough because you have those parents that just are not active, and we become those parents. Ms. Bate, you a school psychologist, become that parent where students come to you before they even go to class to get breakfast, because they know they're not getting that. So when we get the parents, we try to create the home environment of school, and which hence a sense of belonging, feeling that they're in a safe environment to take risks, even if they're not the smartest student or struggle academically. We have the supports in place, and their parents have the supports in place to make sure that they're successful moving forward as a family.
Okay, so thank you, Jermaine. I'm going to, at this point, put everybody into the waiting room. And so we'll have a little quick discussion and then we'll bring you back, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Just give me 1 second. Okay, it's us.
Go ahead and stop the recording.